Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my rant on the incredibly lame sequel, Iron Eagle 2. The Wild Blue Yonder just got wilder. More like the Wild Blue Yonder just got lamer. Because this film is so fucking lame. And it's terrible. It's an awful movie. And I don't even think the first Iron Eagle is a masterpiece by any means. I like it. I have fun with it, but I think it does have some issues. But the problems that film has completely pale in comparison to Iron Eagle 2. This is such a incredibly boring and lackluster movie. It honestly is probably one of the more disappointing sequels of the 80s. Because he had a good runway for a sequel and for a franchise with the first film. And they do nothing with it. Instead, they just crash and burn on the tarmac before the franchise even has a chance to take off. The film was directed by Sidney Furie, and I don't know what happened. Like, his direction isn't so bad, it makes me furious, but it definitely doesn't light a fire under me. It's not the kind of direction where I'm like, yeah, the direction is great, but everything else sucks. And the direction is also pretty bad. Definitely shows the low budget. And Sidney J. Furie still doesn't know how to shoot dogfights. They just don't have the right amount of tension. He did fix some things, like there aren't really barely any shots involving fake looking miniatures, so there's that. But the sequences still look very stock, very standard when it comes to the dog fights. There's not a lot of movement, there's not a lot of tension or energy throughout them. They're just flat, and that's not what you want at all when it comes to flight photography or sequences involving fighter jets and combat. It doesn't help either that there's a lot of sequences that involve ground fighting, like gunfire, gunplay, or tanks or artillery and stuff like that. And the way that those are shot are very turgid, very slow. And then you have other sequences that are shot on the base, training scenes, and they are also very lethargic and sleepy. It's just not a very good looking film either. Like, there's a lot of sequences in this where it looks very murky and just blah. And yeah, it's just a film that really doesn't soar when it comes to the direction. And I honestly am surprised that Sidney J. Furie did not learn from some of his mistakes in Iron Eagle and apply that knowledge with Iron Eagle 2. I think some of that might also have to do with the fact that I don't think his heart was in this one. I think he did this for the paycheck, and it kind of shows. And maybe he was also at a point in his career where he was in a bit of a tailspin himself, because this was directly after he did Superman 4. And that is a film that definitely was a huge blow to his career and to his career prospects. So maybe he was not in a good place when he did this. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. But at the same time, whatever the reason is, like, this is just not an example of good direction. It's not the worst ever, but it's definitely not anything that noteworthy, let alone good. I mean, the best things about this direction are average, and then everything else is just really bad. It's written by Kevin Allen Elders and Sidney J. Furie, the two writers who did Iron Eagle. And this screenplay makes the fatal mistake that way too many sequels tend to do, where they decide to kill off an established character. I don't know why sequels do this. It's always stupid, like in Kickboxer 2 or here in Iron Eagle 2. It's a massive middle finger to fans of the franchise, and it's just one of the biggest turnoffs. So once you do that, then you've lost the audience. And Iron Eagle 2 doesn't do enough to get the audience back after making such a fatal error. I know why it was done, but it's still a bad idea. And it really did not matter how it was executed. It still would have been a bad idea, and it still would have completely crippled the film. And what I'm talking about is, for those of you who haven't seen the film, spoilers, but trust me, I really wouldn't even recommend you watch this movie anyway, because there are a lot better ways to spend your time than watching such a lame movie. But okay, within like the first 5 minutes, Doug Masters dies. Now, I know why he died, because Carlico was the company that financed the film, and they only decided to do it because they were going to use it as a tax shelter. So, in order for them to qualify for that, they were only able to have one big star. So, they went with Louis Gossett Jr. over Jason Gedrick. So that's why his character had to die. But at the same time, did his character even really have to die? You could have done something while he's off in the Air Force. He wasn't able to be a part of the mission. I would have preferred that, to be honest, instead of killing him off. And then if that isn't bad enough, they completely cut Doug Masters' balls off in this script. They give him one of the most emasculating call signs I've ever heard in a film involving fighter pilots. They give him the call sign Thumper. Not Thunder. No, Thumper. You know, like the cute little bunny rabbit from Bambi? I mean, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? You take Doug Masters, this confident, cocky, cool, legitimately kind of badass pilot from Iron Eagle, and then he's fucking Thumper. And then on top of that, you kill him off. So it was like two middle fingers right in the fans' faces before you even got to the main plot. See, Thumper. Like, I call him Eagle. Like, it's right there. Just call him Eagle. Why the hell do you call him Thumper? Stupid. Now, the plot itself is not bad. I mean, the concept has some potential. You have American pilots who are teaming up with Russian pilots, so you have to learn to work together, and Chappie's going to be the one that gets them to realize that they need to work together as a team in order to complete this mission. You know, that kind of stuff. So you have like tension with the Russians and the Americans. But the way that it's written, the way that that's all handled is so bland and cliched. And they try to throw in some intrigue by having one of the pilots be a female, but then they just turn it into something where she's just a love interest for the new main pilot, who I guess is supposed to be the replacement for Doug Masters, but the guy can't even hold Doug's fucking jockstrap. And you have this other stuff with the other Russian pilot who was there when Doug got shot down. So they try to throw in some tension there with the fact that Cobra, who was Doug's partner, who's the one that takes over as the lead, he thinks that this guy killed Doug, but then you find out later that that's not the case, and then they work together and they become friends. The film tries to have some personality with some of these characters. I'll give it that. Like, there's one guy who's like a cartoonist, and he draws cartoons of people. There's this Russian tough guy. He's asked to play some basketball. He's like, hey, do you shoot basketball, shoot the ball. No, come on, let's just shoot some hoops. Shoot the ball. And then he just shoots the ball with a gun. There, I shot the ball. No, it's just like the attempts at humor are just as bad as that, because that's just awful. That's just so groan-inducing kind of stuff where you're like, ha, just get it, shoot the ball. He shot the ball. Can I shoot this movie right between the fucking eyes? And once it gets to the action, it's just really lame and dull. It has more shots of actual fighter jets, and there are barely any shots involving miniatures, which was a nice change of pace. I think that was a good idea. And those sequences look okay, but it just doesn't have any real punch to it and any real reason to care, because the way that these characters are written, they're either cannon fodder, they're unlikable, or you just don't give a shit. Like Cobra's just a wannabe maverick. The guys in the ground crew who have to take out some communication tower, those are disposable as they can be. There's this other guy who's like a mechanic who's just an asshole. He's just a fat fuck. Like, fuck that guy. And the Russians are just like, whatever. Like, there was one other character that I kind of didn't mind, but then he died because he's supposed to be an example of why this mission was deliberately set up to fail, because they handpicked all these people that should never be involved in a mission like this, so the mission wouldn't work. So a bunch of bureaucrats in the military can get an upper hand somewhere or some shit. That stuff was pretty weak as well. The politics, because that's really what Iron Eagle needed. Fucking politics. And yeah, there's explosions in the climax. There's a few dog fights, but none of it really has the same magic or energy as any of the action in Iron Eagle. Then on top of that, Chappie doesn't even fly. You have Chappie Sinclair, and he just stays on the ground the entire time. I don't understand. It's called Iron Eagle 2. You don't have any of the main characters from Iron Eagle flying a fighter jet. I mean, you fucked up already by killing off Doug, which I know is a tax shelter thing, and in all honesty, I think they made the wrong call. As much as I like Louis Gossett Jr., his star was definitely starting to wane at this point, and Jason Gedrick was the rising star. He was honestly, in my opinion, the bigger name at the time, and in order to, when it comes to like getting audiences, getting butts in seats, I think the film still wouldn't have done that well. But I think if Jason Gedrick was the lead, I think that would have helped it do a little better. And I just think, yeah, it was a mistake. And I just don't understand why they went with Louis Gossett Jr. Like, they really thought he was a bigger star at the time. His star was not really that bright by 1988. And the box office of this film definitely did prove that to be the case. So yeah, the script, for the most part, sucks. It's a pretty shitty script. Wastes a good idea of having Russians and American pilots working together, dealing with, the East versus West kind of tension. And yes, I will admit, Top Gun Maverick technically did do this plot of a team of pilots working together, being trained by a veteran pilot to take out a military base. It did use this plot, but it did it so significantly better that I could care less that Iron Eagle 2 did it first. Um, the cast, it's really not up to par. It's a nosedive. Other than Louis Gossett Jr., everyone else is a bunch of who and never worse. Like, who the fuck? Like, Mark Humphrey? Who the hell is this guy? I swear the producers only cast this guy in this film because he looks like Tom Cruise if you squint hard enough. But unlike Tom Cruise, he has no charisma. He's not that larger than life kind of personality. He cannot carry this film. Stuart Margolin as the general, he was such a stereotypical douchebag, evil bad guy general. You might as well have had him twirling his mustache. Alan Scarfe as a colonel, the Russian colonel. Sharon Brandon, who plays the female pilot. Maury Chaykin, who plays the fat fuck character who's just there to be an extension of America's bias towards Russians, apparently. But it was just so heavy handed. It was just terribly handled. Yeah, he plays Sergeant Neville Downs. Yeah, Alan Scarfe, yeah, he plays the colonel, like the guy who is the head of the Russian group. Colm Feore, he plays Lieutenant Yuri Lebanov. In probably one of his earliest film roles, and definitely one of his more forgettable ones. Because that guy is definitely gone on to do a lot better films and deliver better performances. You got like Clark Johnson plays a guy named Richie. Jason Blicker plays Sergeant Hickman. Jesse Collins plays a guy named Major Bush. Yeah, really, Major Bush. I think that's the guy who has claustrophobia. And he was like the other pilot guy that was kind of didn't mind him. The Captain Graves guy had his moments too, played by Clark Johnson. There's a few other actors and actresses. I mean, mainly just actors like Mark Evanier, who played Mikkel. Uri Gavriel played Georgie. Neil Monroe plays Edward. Douglas Sheldon, who plays Sergi. And Jason Gedrick, who plays Lieutenant Doug Thumper Masters in an uncredited cameo. Fucking Thumper. And Jason Gedrick, I mean, he's only in it for like a few minutes, but he's better than anyone else. That's the thing. Like, he was running circles. He was flying supersonic speed around Mark Humphrey or any of the other co-stars in this. And Louis Gossett Jr., I think he was even flying circles around him because Louis Gossett Jr. It just seemed like even his heart wasn't into this. Probably as soon as he found out, wait, Doug's not going to be in this? Jason Gedrick is not going to be in this movie? It's like, no, it's a tax shelter film, and here's your paycheck, though. It's like, I'll definitely take that, but man, I'm really disappointed. And you kind of get that. Like, Louis Gossett Jr. is trying. It's not like he's sleepwalking through the film, but he's given not a lot to work with, and the supporting cast he has here, he can't hold them up. He's asked to do the impossible, and he crashes and burns. Because I don't think anyone could have worked with this cast and made this cast of forgettable actors and actresses really fly. Or this plot. So yeah, the cast isn't much. The cinematography by Alan Dosty, pretty awful. A lot of the film looks very just bland and blah and kind of gives you a headache because it just looks so mushy. Everything just blends together. Nothing really stands apart from another scene. Like everything, like I said, it's just everything just blends together into just blands together. That's the best way to put it. Like, it doesn't even blend together, it just blands together. Everything blands together when it comes to Iron Eagle 2. As well as the editing by Rhett Wallace, the score by Amin Bhatia. The soundtrack does have a couple songs that are good. I will say, when it comes to Iron Eagle 2, one of the only good things about it, other than the fact that it has a lot of shots involving real fighter jets, and some of the action sequences with the fighter jets in the climax are decent. It does have two really good songs on the soundtrack. I Got a Line in You by Alice Cooper, and my personal favorite, Chasing the Angels, which I think is just a really good song and very underrated. But other than those two songs, and maybe some scenes with Louis Gossett Jr., as well as the fighter jet sequences I was talking about, there's really not much about this sequel that I would say is serviceable, let alone great or even good. Like, this is just a really lame, forgettable, bad sequel. And it's a shame. Like, Iron Eagle could be a fun franchise. It's a simple enough concept, just fighter jets and explosions and dogfights, and just a missed opportunity. I mean, this came out 2 years after Top Gun, so this could have been a launch pad for a competitive franchise that could fly alongside Top Gun, but that just really didn't happen. And I don't think the right people were involved when it comes to the producers. I don't think Carlico had the best interests in mind when it comes to this franchise. They just viewed it as a tax shelter, which really just doomed the film from the start. But that's my thoughts on Iron Eagle 2. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.